Hello, my name is Josephine Ask, and this is my Becoming a Leader presentation for Education 554 Advanced Reading Methods Across the Curriculum. So, starting off, I have my brief introduction about what literacy is. So, literacy is a very complex topic. It requires an understanding of nuance, of interconnectivity, and nothing within literacy exists within a vacuum. Everything is woven together, impacting students' literacy acquisition in ways both predicted and unforeseen. So, literature is a massive thing that not only is within the subject of literature itself, but it expands to all the subjects within school and beyond. Literacy is a part of everyday life. Literacy is not just within this small space, it goes beyond and interconnects with everything, even beyond the academic realm. So, starting off, we are looking at content area literacy. So, my definition is a literacy strategy focused on generalization of literacy skills across disciplines. By me, Ask 2025. Teaches students basic but necessary literacy skills needed in all subjects. So, content area literacy is different than disciplinary literacy. It focuses on generalization of skills instead of specific skills for different skill sets within the different domains or disciplines. It is really important because it is the second most used method after basic literacy content skills used in the earlier grades. Oftentimes you see this used in middle school and later elementary, and oftentimes in high school. Now, it is really important because it promotes useful skills across the curriculum. So it provides students with these skills and it is transferred beyond the school setting, as told by Moss in 2005. It is connected with other disciplines through their shared literacy concepts, as told by International Literacy Association 2017. It is incredibly important. So, as we are moving on to the next section of content area literacy, I have a brief inquiry question before we get going. It is, what is your understanding of content area literacy? And I have a part 2 to this question. How do you utilize content area literacy in your classroom? So I'm going to have you pause the video and take a second to think. And once you're unpaused, you're going to keep going. Content area literacy part 2. So I have a big personal impact with content area literacy. These are skills that are really necessary for students. So although the younger grades mostly focuses on basic area literacy skills, early content area literacy methods should still be integrated into this. It should not just be basic literacy skills. When I am in the classroom, I try and utilize them as much as possible, even if it is something as simple as having students introduce a topic through writing and science or history, even if it's a kindergartner doing it or if it's a first grader doing it. It is still necessary to have it across all subjects. As indicated by Ryan and Lipp's 2005 research, content area literacy instruction increases literacy comprehension and indicates an upward trend in content area knowledge, which means that it is a way in which students can increase their understanding of the material overall, and it helps them understand each individual content area, not just the literacy within. So that is pretty awesome. And moving on, it has a large connection to the Common Core. So both the Common Core and content area literacy focus on utilizing literacy across the curriculum, as told by International Literacy Association 2012. So content area literacy focuses on those literacy skills and making them evident in the Common Core standards. Basically, this means that content area literacy skills also focus on the same ways that the Common Core makes their standard universal. They focus on the generalization of skills rather than the specification of skills. So, skills and Common Core standards converge with that shared goal of skill transference as well. So they're focusing on transferring those skills and going beyond the academic sphere. So they're hoping that students will still be great literate students even after they graduate. And lastly, they want those students to be post-graduation literacy masters, as told by the National Governors Association Center for Best Practices and the Council of Chief State School Officers 2010, Part A. Basically, that is the association that works with the Common Core. So basically, they're saying that their goal is that students will graduate from using the Common Core as well as the content area literacy strategies, and they will be very literate citizens. The Common Core state standards is another area, as indicated by the past slide, that is incredibly important in literacy, especially since they've been implemented in most states in the United States at this point. So the definition, the Common Core standards are standards put in place to guide and define student academic achievement. National Governors Association Center for Best Practices and Council of Chief State School Officers 2010, Part A. So basically that means that they're putting these standards in place to define student academic achievement across all disciplines, but particularly they're using these literacy standards to do that. The Common Core in Washington State focuses on all areas. This means that they're focusing on all areas and connecting it with literacy. That means social studies, history, even doing other language arts, things like that. It is all interconnected within the Common Core. However, this emphasis on standards is basically the standards are all on literacy acquisition, as I just stated. So it's mostly focusing on literacy acquisition, but they're interconnecting with all those other disciplines, which is very similar to the content area literacy as seen right here. So it is really important. The standards determine what educators should focus on in both lesson construction and execution. So that basically means that it focuses on both what the educators should be doing during the lessons with those standards and what should happen after the lesson. So it's saying, here is the standards you should use while constructing that lesson and what your goal, and as well as what your goals should be at the end. So educators are evaluated on these standards in Washington State. So basically, they are part of their standards of teacher competency, as stated by the Washington Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction, or OSPI, basically in 2023. So the state standards are also important that they guide rather than use specific instruction. So this means that it is up to the educator to use their own methods. Educators are given instructional choice in the implementation of the standards. So, as stated by the National Governors Association Center for the Best Practices and Council of Chief State School Officers 2010, Part B. This basically means that educators are given that instructional choice or the pedagogical choice to implement these standards as they see fit. And as seen by the Venn diagram up here, the content area literacy focuses... But basically, I meant to flip it. Sorry about that. That's a Josie misask mix-up. But Common Core focuses on standards and it is state determined, while the content area literacy focuses on methods and it is teacher determined. However, they both focus on universal methods, shared practices, and literate graduates. So Common Core state standards have a big impact on me personally. So I find them both a necessity, mostly in general education, and a hindrance, mostly in special education. So the CCSS, that's the Common Core state standards, offers a guide, but it is not overly intrusive in everyday academics. So that basically is great for general education teaching. It is basically a way to set standards. Educators can look at them as a way to set goals for their students, but they are not too intrusive. However, this does not adhere in the same way to the special education school of thought. They are too focused on being within the general guide, meaning that there's no outliers present, meaning that they are very rigid and using those standards to set a precedent. So the special education teachers cannot use these standards as in the same way general education teachers can to set goals for their students. This means that it is basically impossible for these special education teachers to be scored at the same way during teacher competency as their general education peers. So, these methods of measurement when working in the special education setting do not work, as mentioned by Constable et al. In 2013. So, as I mentioned earlier, the Common Core focuses on the universal. This means that it focuses on everything. Disciplines and literacy skills are all included, as stated by A Call for a Common Core content in 2011. The Common Core focuses on these universal standards, and it connects to all topics. As seen through the connections with content area literacy, pedagogy, and the essential components of literacy, which are pre-reading skills, the content area literacy and CCSS are connected in this way. So they have that shared focus. Similarly, pedagogy is left up to the educator, just as the standards are they're a set of loose guidance rules. So basically, pedagogically, it is up to the educator. Lastly, the CCSS promotes the usage of strategies and the acquisition of essential literacy components. This means that they focus on phonological awareness, morphological awareness, and phonemic awareness, all those. Those are the foundational skills, and they're all connected to the CCSS standards, as stated by Brady in 2012. Moving on to the third one, pedagogical knowledge and frameworks. My definition: differing methods educators have for approaching learning. Every educator has personal theories, methods, and ways of implementation that coverage as their personal pedagogical knowledge and framework. Kentawala 2023. There are 5 distinct pedagogical method approaches: constructivist, reflective, collaborative, integrative, and inquiry-based. So basically, as Teaching Partner 2024 says, these have different approaches. Basically, they have different ways of viewing the student methods within the classrooms, what students need to be doing in the classrooms, what the teacher role is. All these are the ways in which the teacher and the student interact in the classroom. So basically, the importance of these is that educators need to have a pedagogical framework to spread their pedagogical knowledge. If a teacher doesn't have a pedagogical framework, they do not have a way of doing things consistently. And as every educator knows, that consistency is key. The students benefit from that solid foundation that the teacher has built. Different pedagogical methods will focus on different ways, but as long as they are a solid foundation, teachers can solidly offer support and a method of education for their students. As seen over here, I have done the constructivist method, in which students are known to construct their own knowledge. That is one of the 5 main approaches. And the other one is collaborative. Students collaborate to meet their goals and understand the world around them. The pedagogical knowledge and frameworks personal impact. Due to my work as a substitute, I currently do not often get to use my pedagogical knowledge and personal frameworks. I tend towards the integrative and inquiry-based approaches, but due to the fact that these are highly focused on a cohesive relationship with the students, I often don't get to do these outside of conversations and discussions with students. Thus, when I get those opportunities, I pounce on them. I take those opportunities and I run with it. Every time in which I can provide students with my pedagogical frameworks or the ways in which I implement my approaches, it is a wonderful day. As told by the Teaching Partner 2024, implementing skills from your pedagogical approach is an authentic way for teachers to use these methods. Even subs have a pedagogical framework and approach. Connection to the Common Core. The pedagogical knowledge and frameworks are means by which the Common Core can function as a set of unobtrusive standards. If the pedagogical frameworks are not in place, the Common Core would be far more intrusive. Educators having this knowledge allows a Common Core to exist without becoming too restrictive. Frey et al., 2016. The pedagogical framework allows educators to meet those standards and have them in place while utilizing their personalized methods of instructions. National Governors Association Center for Best Practices and Council of Chief State School Officers, 2010a. The structure of pedagogical approaches allows that structure to be in place. So basically they're in a oh my goodness, they're in a relationship where they work off each other. I forgot the word. I am so sorry. But they work off each other in ways in which they both benefit. So basically, the pedagogical frameworks could not be in place with a rigid Common Core, and the rigid Common Core and the current Common Core that is in use, that has basic standards, could not be in place without the pedagogical knowledge. And my inquiry questions are: how does pedagogy influence other literacy topics, pre-reading, content, area literacy, etc.? And what pedagogical practices do you utilize? So I'm going to give you the chance to think. If you want to pause, you can pause. Lastly, focusing on the essential components of literacy and pre-reading skills. So, the definition. These are the essential components of literacy. They have numerous skills such as morphological awareness, phonemic awareness, phonological awareness. That is, even phonological awareness is comprised of multiple different things. So, these provide students with fluent skills for their reading. All of it is working up to a fluent reading standard for the students. Morphological awareness is segmentation and understanding of morphological components. Gyatso Do, 2024. And then the phonemic awareness focuses on connecting letters and individual letter sounds. So it is basically a lesser version of the morphological awareness. Morphological awareness builds off of phonemic awareness. And that is from the Learning at the Primary Pond 2021. And then the phonological awareness comprises multiple skills based on early literacy skills such as rhyming, breaking apart simple words, and isolating individual letter sounds within a word. Kirby et al., 2008. So basically, these are all skills that are necessary for proper fluent reading. These are skills that should be fluent for students before they get into proper reading. These are really important because without the proper pre-reading skills, students cannot reach full literacy fluency. This lack of unyielding interpretation of the written word will become a lifelong detriment to the student. Welch Ross et al., 2012. The morphological, phonemic, and phonological awarenesses provide student foundation needed for true fluency. Deacon and Kirby, 2004. This fluency will then lead the student to literacy comprehension. They are the first steps towards reading fluency and comprehension. Basically, without these pre-reading skills, students cannot fully reach this comprehension skills and thus then reach fluency. So skills like prosody, I believe that's how you pronounce it, my apologies, cannot be fully reached without the pre-reading skills. Thus, leads us to the inquiry questions. What are pre-reading skills? Do you think they are the most crucial? What pre-reading skills do you think are the most crucial? Do you utilize pre-reading skills in your classroom? Why or why not? And that might depend on the age of your students. So, the essential components of literacy and pre-reading skills. So, the connection to the Common Core. Both the Common Core state standards and pre-reading skills provide educators with the foundations needed to lead students towards literacy. Bright, 2021. The Common Core is the scaffolding which is leading educators in providing students with the necessary instruction. So it is the scaffolding that is needed for educators to provide these foundational skills. Additionally, the Common Core emphasizes pre-reading skills for younger grades as foundational skills. And later on, these skills are continued to be seen in the standards going on all the way until the middle school grades. These basically are ensuring that the necessary standards are in place to make sure that the adequate early reading instruction is in place. So personally, I work with a lot of younger students. My literacy instruction largely focuses on teaching these pre-literacy reading skills. Pre-reading skills are not only necessary as a pathway towards understanding in all content areas, they are also a means in which students can fully understand the written word. So they are basically teaching students the skills needed to fully form reading skills as they are going on. As I have taught across elementary grades, I have found that these are necessary, especially going into third grade. It is a time where it is an academic shift, and as I have worked in many classrooms, I have noticed that students without these pre-reading skills are not able to reach full fluency. So, as I have said, phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, and morphological awareness are all needed to provide students with the necessary skills to excel in all domains. And as you can see, I have highlighted segmenting, blending, and rhyme. Moving on, we are going to be getting into the case study for Cindy, the kindergartner. And the skills we are going to be looking at and the strategies are building phonemic awareness, phonological awareness, and prosodic ability. We are first going to be asking, why kindergarten? Kindergarten and the early reading grades have always fascinated me. The rapid process from not being able to read to being able to read full books is almost a magical experience. This is really what led me to this case study. I have had some amazing experiences tutoring students and teaching literacy to younger students, and it really cemented my decision. Additionally, I hope to teach younger grades, meaning that this is basically practice for me identifying students and their needs. Literacy in younger years is a whirlwind of progress, and I hope to capture it using Cindy as my case study subject. So, reading fluency strategies. Before reading. The importance of before reading strategies. Before reading strategies provide students with the contextual evidence, opportunities to connect to previous knowledge and engagement with the materials. WIG, no date. Before reading strategies are diverse, allowing students to use strategies best suited for their needs. Today, these strategies will be focused on phonemic awareness and phonological awareness, and I also added prosodic ability for kindergartner Cindy. So, using the strategy of the letter sort by Unis and Stoll, 2024, Cindy will be looking at the letter connections between sounds and letters before going into the reading. Even if it's an individual activity or it's a whole class activity, Cindy will be basically looking at these letter connections and playing a game with them. She'll be sorting the letters and will be able to fully engage with the material. This gamification is necessary for the younger grades. However, it is also an exercise for Cindy to practice these before she fully gets into the reading. Hopefully, this will help with her alphabetic awareness. Because, as indicated by the case study, she is not able to identify letters. This means that she is unable to identify the letter and letter sound connections. Using the strategy, she will be able to build up this phonemic awareness and thus be able to get into other skills like phonological awareness and her prosodic ability. Next, the phonological awareness. Cindy, as indicated by the case study, has trouble with phonics. Using the vocabulary instruction method by Douglas et al. From 2002, using this method, Cindy can identify with the teacher which words are unknown within the text. These words can be practiced using the phonological skills of blending, segmenting, rhyming, etc. This vocabulary identification will allow Sydney to further comprehend the text while getting additional phonological instruction. Basically, the vocabulary instruction gives an additional chance for Cindy to look at the words, use her phonological awareness skills, blend, segment, and use all those skills to basically break down the words and understand them fully. This will help with her prosodic ability, which leads us into the prosodic ability. Cindy has been having difficulties with prosody. As discussed in the lecture video, Providing background context is an additional measure to increase text comprehension. So basically, we are going to be using providing background text and context to allow Cindy to gain full prosodic ability while reading the text. Prosody is a result of comprehension of the text. Jensen 2023. Providing Cindy with context for the text would increase comprehension. Thus, it would lead to higher prosody when reading. Moving on to reading fluency strategies. During reading, the importance of during reading strategies. During reading, strategies provide students with scaffolding during the lesson. Focusing on clarification while reading, these methods allow students to increase their comprehension of the text while reading. WIG. No date. Part B. Additionally, they provide students with opportunities to make connections to other materials while reading it for the first time, which thus increases comprehension overall. Phonemic awareness. Although phonemic awareness focuses on individual letter sounds, students can practice isolating sounds within words while reading, especially if during a reading aloud, it is an individual read aloud going through. So, offering Cindy a chance to do an individual read aloud prior to this class doing the full read aloud would allow her to use this phonemic awareness ability to break down these letter sounds and focus on that alphabetical awareness. Cindy could be provided a graphic organizer of letters to practice while reading as well. So this would allow her to practice that phonemic awareness in context. It would also place phonemic awareness within the broader picture of reading, allowing her to see what her end goal is. Moving on to prosodic ability. Due to Cindy's lack of confidence when reading in front of her peers as indicated by the case study, I would use the choral reading strategy for her to see how all students are reading during the text. This would allow Cindy to practice the intonation and pronunciation without the pressure of her peers hearing her. Additionally, choral readings are conducted under the guidance of a teacher. Thus, they are able to hear the proper pronunciation and the proper prosody of the reading. Hearing a fluent reader's prosodic reading would guide future readings of the text and thus lead to further contextualization of prosodic awareness within Cindy, thus increasing her prosodic ability. Next, the phonological awareness would have Cindy focusing on her poor phonological skills as indicated by low prosody and alphabetical awareness. During the one-on-one readings of the passage with a teacher after all the students are moving on, she could work with a teacher or another high-level peer, and Cindy could identify the unknown words and practice phonological strategies, as told in Teachings and Education 2021. After practicing phonological strategies such as segmenting and blending, Cindy can then reread the passage to determine if the strategy aided in reading fluency and comprehension. Basically, using one-on-one strategies allows her to hear how another person is reading while also getting the guidance to be able to say stop and have a conversation about what the phonological awareness skills are being used in that. So basically, it gives her a chance to not only hear someone else, but also have the opportunities to pause and have full control over that. Lastly, reading fluency strategies post-reading. The importance of post-reading strategies. Post-reading strategies serve as a way to reinforce information, leading to long-term recall. Post-reading offers students the opportunity to not only reflect on the information, but to analyze and further it through discussion and written reflection. Previous information cannot truly be built upon without proper post-reading reflection. So the two things we are focusing on are the CRAMP strategy for prosodic ability. CRAMP allows students to go back, focus on comprehension and fluency as a class. Using the strategy, Cindy would practice the comprehension aspect of prosody. The strategy, due to its focus on ongoing comprehension post-reading, provides Cindy with additional opportunities to not only demonstrate her understanding, gaining more confidence in her abilities, which is a part of prosodic ability, but also seeing how others in her class are using comprehension strategies, providing a model for future readings. Phonological awareness and phonemic awareness are kind of put together in this one, because after using CRAMP to increase prosodic ability, I would then have students work on individual modified versions of the cartoon strip method. Using this method, Cindy would create a comic strip using words and vocabulary that she would found new or difficult during the reading. This would emphasize her sounding out the letters, phonemic awareness, and breaking down the words and writing them down. Phonological awareness. Using this method would connect visuals with the words processing, making recall of the information more easily accessible. Thus, even after reading, Cindy can focus on phonological and phonemic awareness acquisition. So, I chose this because I would like to basically track progress overall for the student. So I chose the two tracking progress methods, one being the individual oral reading method. So the individual oral reading method provides insight into a student's prosody, fluency, and word comprehension. The tracking word rate accuracy and number of errors during the oral reading performance will provide the current results, making instruction responsive to any changes in Cindy's instructional needs. Thus, it would be a chart. It would show after every reading, the number of words would be tracked, the rate of comprehension would be tracked, the fluency would be tracked by word rate, which is basically speed. There's an entire equation for it. Accuracy, which is the number of words in the total reading that she got right, and the number of errors that she got. So basically the number of times she stumbled, the number of times that she missed a word, it would all be tracked, and hopefully it would show an increase rather than a decrease in her prosodic abilities. The second method of tracking progress would be tracking phonemic and phonological awareness skills. So using the method of having Sydney pronounce and break down individual letter sounds in a non-word format would offer true insight into Cindy's phonemic and phonological awareness skills, because oftentimes, especially in the kindergarten age range, there are a lot of sight words that are used to also have the students break down and use their phonemic and phonological awareness skills on. So having non-words would basically allow Cindy to demonstrate these skills without relying on sight word strategies. So it would be a genuine method to show her progress without having her use sight word skill ability to flip it around and make it look like she's doing better than she is. So it would be a genuine method of tracking progress. And connecting to the Common Core, as discussed earlier, the Common Core has many connections to not only phonological and phonemic awareness, it also has many connections to reading fluency. There are the foundational and fluency skills during early development and continued into the early elementary grades and some into the later elementary grades. The two standards in particular are the reading emergent reader text with purpose and understanding for reading fluency, and demonstrate understanding of spoken words, syllables, and sounds. So that would be phonemes for foundational skills, phonemic and phonological awareness. So basically, these are within the Common Core, allowing these connections to be built. So if educators are not seeing that these skills are being utilized, they can look into the Common Core and see what they need to utilize and what focuses on what the foundational and the fluency skills are so that they can further utilize them in their classrooms. Lastly, woohoo! Reflection. So, reflect on the topics. This course taught me the true interconnectivity of literacy. Everything is intertwined to create truly literate students. Developing a deeper understanding of topics, such as Common Core and reading strategies, has provided me with the confidence to start literacy in my own classroom next year. Literacy is complex, but no longer daunting. I feel like I am far more confident than I was at the start of this course, and I want to thank you. Which leads me into growing in confidence, fluency in the Common Core. Going beyond reading strategies and my growth and confidence in that realm, I feel far more confident in my understanding of the Common Core and reading fluency. My basic knowledge has not changed. I have had some previous experiences with literacy in the classroom, but I have grown in my specific knowledge of both topics. I feel like I have far more specific skills and abilities to tap into the literacy in a number of age ranges and grades. This knowledge is not only crucial, but a testament to the necessity of literacy instruction for all educators, not just literacy coaches. Next, the Common Core. Is it truly essential? Personally, I find that the majority of standards of the Common Core are aspects that I already prioritize in my teaching. So, Common Core is more like a checklist rather than a strict set of methods that I should be using. Therefore, I am kind of indifferent overall to the Common Core. I find that it is necessary for it to be in place because it offers a general standard, but I do believe that it should be far more rigid in certain aspects, such as special education settings. So overall, I do not consider the Common Core something that I use in my everyday teaching. I'm glad I know it, but it is not something that I am truly excited to use overall in my classroom as a overall tool for me to look at every single day. So, moving on, utilizing learned material. I feel rather confident in utilizing the material we learned over this course. I have several opportunities in the past that I used to tap on and use in my everyday life, but I feel like I have a lot more purpose in utilizing that due to the materials that I learned in this class. I learned so many skills this quarter, and now I have so many new assets that I want to use as well as the ones I already know. I'm really excited to use this understanding in my own classroom next year. I am so excited to use it, especially since I'm looking for a job now. It is one of my main priorities right now to get somewhere where I can use these skills. And this is the last slide of reflection. So, literacy goals as a teacher. My first goal is to create a literacy environment that makes learning an enjoyable activity. I have seen so many students lack enjoyment in reading, and I truly want to make this flip that switch in them and turn them into readers. Because reading is a necessity. It is something that is part of everyday life. And it leads to my second goal. It is to add content area literacy in the younger grades. Content area literacy is not utilized enough, and I want to see it demonstrated as early as TK, if not earlier. Content area literacy can be used by younger students, and I want to use the strategies that I know now to demonstrate it and use it and show it to my colleagues. It is truly important to me. Early access predicts later success. And my advice on fluency and comprehension to other educators: do not make it too rigid in your classroom. That makes it lose all joy. Understand your individual students, understand what they need, but do not focus on every single word. Sometimes students have a bad day. Sometimes they don't meet their reading goal for the week. Things happen. Things outside of school happen. Especially in the early years, students progress at different rates. Focus on meeting the goals for each student and where they're at, and mostly focus on sparking joy for reading. That will help them in the long run. Thank you for watching. I truly have appreciated you being my instructor this quarter. I have enjoyed every single comment you made on my posts. I've enjoyed every single time that I especially enjoyed the time that I got to talk to you during that meeting. I truly enjoyed you. Thank you so much. I have learned so much.